We're basically doing the same thing we did Tuesday. Um, at least we intend to, right, Vicky?
Yes, and we have new
And
people in today that weren't in here on Tuesday.
that we're not? Okay, gotcha. All right, cool. So we, while everyone's kind of joining, give a little bit of an update. I think that we talked about on Tuesday. Um, so uh, we're we're working to get all of our get everyone up to speed. And so we've got about 16 or 17 now, maybe total applications that we're working with. We got the first group through with the video shorts, the YouTube shorts. Um, as we said on Tuesday, we didn't invent that. It wasn't our idea. Actually, Rick discovered it working with Fernando, a client and businessman out of Johnson Space Center area. Rick is the retired with NASA Johnson Space Center, and working with him and the Small Business Council and the Primes Council discovered that he recommended this YouTube short. It's now 3 minutes, and we're using it. The Tech Scouts were planning to review information we were going to give them this year. That was planned, but we didn't have planned the YouTube Shorts. So the YouTube Shorts new to us. It's working well. For those of you that have done it, great. For those of you that haven't, we need those done. Uh, Somebody asked a question, and I'm not sure if they're on or not. I don't think they are, but somebody asked a question, can they get something else done and delay it? And I said, no, we really need to get them done. And the reason why we need them done is this conference is attracting more and more of the ecosystem people. We did Encountering Innovation through the SBDCs by ourselves for several years, working with the DoD Tech Scouts, what I call a wildcat event. Well, we're now being funded with the DIU Defense Innovation On-Ramp Hub, and we're part of getting funding and working with the On-Ramp Hub in Kansas. But we're also working with Southwest. We still want to call it Southwest MAC, Uh, it's like they're permanently Southwest MAC, but the Southwest On-Ramp Hub. And then yesterday we talked with the Pacific. No, the day before yesterday, we we talked with the Pacific Northwest, and they're planning to join us in working with trying to send us some clients for the conference. The reason why we need to get everybody's shorts in and get them over to the Tech Scouts is because the sooner the Tech Scouts get what we feel like the first 20, we can do 20 to 30, but once we get the 20 done, then the Tech Scouts know who we're working with, and then they can start doing their part. Our conference is pivoting from what it used to be as a socializing program, working with the subject matter experts, if you will, the DoD Tech Scouts, and then they would take the best of the approximately 60 and refer them. They've told us that they want to change that, and how we're altering that is the late stage business ready late TRL 7 to 9 focus, and they want, as they called it, heavy hitters. They want people that are ready to go. That's a pivot from what we did before. We are not abandoning lower TRL. In fact, this morning, Tim Fowler sent me information that we will be working with that specifically targets 3 to 5, 3 to 6. So we're still going to do all that. But right now, what we need is to get this group or the cohort done where we can get the Tech Scouts doing what they need to do. They need to attract others. They need to attract program managers and people that can help, because the plan is this 7 to 9 focused group, these 20 to 30 innovators, they need the Tech Scouts want more of an audience, whether they're there in person or virtually, or they're getting ready for a referral based on what the Tech Scouts see. What we're trying to do is get more of what used to happen with the Encountering Innovation in that pitch. We're trying to get as much of that done as we can ahead of time. If that all gets done by the time you get to the pitch, and all it's a foregone conclusion, all the better. Why? Because then they can be working on the next steps that are for you, whether that's funding, assistance, SBIR, OTA, PIA, et cetera, right? So they're working, we need them to help you by knowing what's coming and who you are ahead of time. So that's why we're trying to get that part done. So those of you that, like I said, if you haven't got your shorts done, please do them. We don't need perfection. We need information. Okay. Perfection can come later. We got ideas of how the YouTube shorts can be improved. We see best practices and we'll pass those on to you later. That's not necessary right now. We need a good batch of information that they can see. They understand what this is. Okay. This is a collaborative process to the conference. So with that in mind, hopefully everybody can relax with that. Today, we're going to be, that's as part of the overview, that was part of the overview. I'm going over to the conference website and I'll show you some information and we're going to go into the quad chart and talk about the quad chart. Vicki will talk about the process of information that's coming to you and how that works. With that in mind, I'm going to pause for a second and then ask a question. Are there any questions about what we've covered up to now, or any comments that need to be made before we get into the program? All right, hearing none, we'll get started. Vicki, have we recorded any of these, or are we recording these? Okay, all right. Oh, I can't hear you.
I do it all the time. Yes, we are recording them, and I'm going to be working with Marissa to get a place on the website
Okay.
for the recordings.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. With that in mind, we'll get started. So I'm going to share my screen. And I got to do sound. There we go.
I figured out what that the weather buttons were on the awning.
All right. So you should be seeing, if you go to encounteringinnovation.com, this is what should pop up. If you don't see this Encountering Innovation with the white border, if you don't see that in your screen, you probably have you may have a pop-up blocker that's blocking that. So that's why you might not see that. What we try to do is when you get to the landing page, the person working with us at Pittsburgh State, they make it to where you can get to the conference page. The conference page you can find over here under more. So if we click on this, we're going to go straight to the conference page. If we X out and you get to the regular screen, just go to more, and then down below that you see EI Conference 2025. If you talk to others and share about this program, you can anytime. We've got the flyer on the conference page, but you can always share with them encounteringinnovation.com, because we try to do our best to give you as much information about, good or bad, whatever it is, information about the conference and what we've done in the past, to give everybody an idea. This isn't about trying to be flashy or cool. It's about trying to be effective, getting information to you and to others. With that in mind, the conference website page, this, as we go forward, this page should give you everything you need to attend. Down at the bottom, we generally will have, or a tab over logistics page. Vicki's working on that. We're working on the conference hotel and some of the things that we're doing. But in here, application, if others see this, tech transfer, the matchmaking that we'll talk about later, that's stuff that Rick's working on, the flyer, our tech scouts, you can see who's participated in the past. That's part of why we need to get the cohort together, where we can get our tech scouts to be able to do outreach with others. And then the tech coaches being those that we call a tech coach, anyone that's working with you, the innovators that generally are SBDC folks. Sometimes Apex or even accelerator programs. If you go to tech transfer training, then everything that we do should be able to be here on this page for training. That is, if we're talking about like the combatant command capability needs, what did your information match? Which is why the shorts are going over now to the tech scouts where they can review that. They do two things. They judge DoD relevance according to their combatant command needs, and then they do a hierarchy of priority. How important is that to us, to me, as the representative to Central Command, Northern Command, whatever they represent? Each of the Tech Scouts individually judge those, and they score the priority. The higher priorities with the DoD relevance of yes are the ones that are pitching. If you get judged that it's not relevant or it's not as high of a priority, that doesn't mean you can't attend the conference. It means that if you're not selected to pitch, you just won't be in that 20-minute private pitch. Other than that, you could attend all that we're doing. You can also work with us ongoing. Once you show up here and we've got your name and we've got the bluff and all the information about you, you become one of the group. If you don't want to be one of the group, all you got to do is say, yeah, don't send me any information. I don't want to know it anymore. Otherwise, we're going to continue to try to help you ongoing. That's just who we are, and that's how that works. It's basically the way the metrics work with the SBDC folks, right? So that they score business, startup, capital infusion, revenue, things like that. So that's what we're about as we work with them to help you. You may or may not score specifically with DoD. I've preached this before. I said it on Tuesday. We will proudly tell anyone if they say, well, wait a minute, if they get funding and they end up working with a company outside of DoD, why did you refer or why did you help them? And all we have to do is go back to the Secretary of Defense and their IBAS program. That is basically onshoring and try to get manufacturing and have the United States a stronger country. But basically, as Adele Ratcliffe says, as she talks about this as the director of IBAS, back like it was in World War II. The reason we won World War II basically was because of the manufacturing ability inside the U.S. So we will proudly try to help you regardless of if it's DoD, DOE, DHS, NASA, Space Force, or completely outside of any federal agency. That's how all of us, our attitude, Tech Scouts included. All right. So today, Bill, we got Bill over here. I don't think I've referred to you as Bill in a box, Bill. We will have him when we didn't have him live. We still used him. So Bill has done all this training. So these are the ones we refer to. Each of these black boxes are Bill talking to you. The templates are below. The template we have now is an update. There's a slight change. You'll see that as we go forward. But all the way through here, you can read ahead, you can watch ahead and get as much as you need to get done ahead of time. That's fine. There's nothing telling you not to. What we do is try to pull everybody forward in a group to where you can talk, ask questions that helps each other. All right, let's make sure you can hear him. Tell me if you can't.
Welcome. Previously given you
Good. Okay.
a general introduction to the conference. After you apply, you're going to receive a series of draft documents. And the one that you want to start with is the quad chart. Quad chart gives a basic summary of what you want to communicate, the most important aspects of your technology. There is not room for everything in a quad chart, and it can be really, really frustrating. But it helps you determine what is most important to communicate. So as you look at this, I'm going to go through a general form, and then I'm going to go through some examples. But it's really important that you please leave the fonts alone for consistency with other companies that are at the conference, and also just so it's readable, because these documents are going to go on to people. Not like this one company, they actually sent me a quad chart and they said, I didn't have enough room, so I just shrunk the font until I could get it. And they had like a 6-point font with a page with almost no blank space on it at all. It was horrible to read. I'm going to cover the specific chart that's needed for the Tech Scouts. You know, when somebody asks you for a quad chart, the first thing you need to ask is, what information do they need? Because quad chart just means a chart that's split up into 4 parts. And they can be used for all kinds of things. So for the purposes of this conference, let's pull up a blank quad chart that's formatted for what we need in order to be ready for the conference so that the Tech Scouts can pass this on. At the top, you're going to see a place for a logo. That's really helpful starting out. Just start to get people's attention and helps them to distinguish your company from another company. Then beside that, you're going to have contact information. This information is going to be not just anybody in your company, this is going to be the single point of contact for your company. What the Tech Scouts are looking for, and this varies from person to person, but in general, they want a single communication link to your company, at least for now. Somebody that will gather the questions from Tech Scouts or the information they need, will gather it together from the company and then reply back to them, because it can be very confusing and frustrating when you start getting 3 and 4 different conversations going along with the company, going to the company, between the company and Tech Scouts. So then over on the top right-hand side, you'll see a title, which should be rather short, and in order to be consistent, once again, just leave the font alone if you can. If you don't be shrinking it very much. Then that title should be descriptive, but not too long. So, okay, now we're going to go over to a fictitious company called Acme. And I'm going to show you what it actually will look like. At the top of their quad chart, you're going to see their logo, their single point of contact, and then the title of their technology. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth between these 2 slides to illustrate what I'm trying to explain. So let's start with quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 actually starts out by a description of the technology, not the company, but the technology and the most important pieces about your technology. And just as a side note, when you get your draft copies back, you're going to see sometimes there's not very much information in these fields. Sometimes there's overruns down into the text boxes in the lower fields, and it looks like a real mess. But please just bear with us. Start editing on the upper parts of the chart, and once you fill in the information up there and decide what you need to say, and you shrink what you're communicating to fit in the text box, and you'll easily see the ones down below. So just bear with it, even if it looks messy. So we start out with a 1-sentence summary, 1 or maybe 2, that gives an overview of your technology. Just the broad scope. And then a descriptive graphic can go in there if you have one. Not just any graphic, but something that really kind of shows the essence of ballpark of what you're doing. That can be really helpful. It makes your technology stand out. We've actually had Tech Scouts call us back and say, hey, I'm interested in that company that had that picture of this on there from last year's conference, and who was that? Sometimes pictures can make that much difference. So between that picture, that 1 or 2 sentence summary, and just looking at your title, the reader should be able to understand very quickly what this technology is. Then underneath that, some basic bullet points. I would start, first of all, whittle down what you think are the most unique, critical things about your technology. Why is it better than competitors? Does it have new features to an existing product? What special things does it do? And this is really important to emphasize. It's not the special sauce of how to do it. That's your IP. That's typically how you're doing it. What you're doing is not typically as much IP. So then I would, once you've whittled down your list, I would go back and think through what is my strongest point for the specific audience that I'm anticipating being in front of. If it's a Department of Defense Technology Scout, what would probably be their most interesting aspect? And it's important to note what you really want to communicate here is not necessarily too deep into the specifics, but in just about their applications, but in general, what are the characteristics? If you were explaining to somebody, here's the key points of what we do. So now let's flip over and we're going to look at our Acme example. So here's our one-sentence summary. It talks about minimizing waste stream and using the byproducts off of it to generate electricity and heat. So we have a picture that looks rather descriptive of some kind of a system. We don't have a lot of detail here, and we don't necessarily need that. But, and we realize this is probably an exaggeration, but basically it's saying, hey, we can put any kind of feedstock into this thing. Of important point, we don't have to worry about what kind of waste is going in there and having to sort it. We just throw it in there. And the output is non-hazardous. It renders everything that goes in there inert. It breaks it down into things that we don't need to worry about. Produces clean syngas. Depending on the waste stream, you can get different volumes of that. It's also going to produce some char that comes out the backside as well. It's a net producer of energy, so it actually uses some of the gas that's coming off of there to run that heating in the system. So it operates as a net producer of energy, and it kills pathogens and gets rid of hazardous problems, hazardous materials, even hospital waste, which can be a big deal. So that's kind of an example of the sort of things that you want to communicate in a quadrant 1. Notice this is just generally what it does. That becomes important. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit later. So now we move on to quadrant 2. What we want to show here under past performance of the technology in the company, mostly the past performance of the technology. Sometimes the company will feed into that, but remember the tech scouts are predominantly looking at this technology and whether it's relevant to them. They don't really care as much at this point about your company. It's the technology that they're evaluating. So what has it shown? What has already been demonstrated? It's not really so much about things about the company, as I mentioned, but there are relevant things about the company, maybe background of your company. Maybe you're working on a technology that the fact that you spent the last 5 years working in another area, and now you've seen how that applies to this new area, that could be really significant. Or there could be other related products. So you want to communicate the status of your technology, special features, some demonstrations. If you have some simulations about it, that's what you would want to put here. So you're backing up some of what's been done. And especially, I would say, put your strongest points forward again. I would put the technology points at the top. And then if you have room down at the bottom, go ahead and you can add a bullet point or two about the company, But the company is not really that significant at this point. So now, now we're going to move on to quadrant 3, which are the top right-hand corner. What is the relevance to the combatant command or other need? This may change, depends on which conference you're talking about here. For our Encountering Innovation conference, it would be combatant command. The tech scouts from the different combatant commands, which you can look up, and I've talked about in the previous video, they're your primary audience. There are others in the audience as well, but that would be your primary audience. There is opportunities that they have, that they share about as much as they can about their needs, and so we're targeting those areas that they have mentioned to us as needs. They talk to us as needs, and you can find charts on that. We'll talk more about that another time. For other conferences, that might be more of a specific audience. For example, space conference, this will actually relate to space relevance, different technologies that would relate to, say, for instance, some might be software for monitoring location, others might have to do with launch capabilities, other where would be comm systems, communicating between satellites. Those are all space technologies, but they are, in general, different categories associated with it. So, and just remember, in quadrant 1, I want to refer back to, this was about what does your technology do? In general, I mean, in the specific uniquenesses. Now, in quadrant 3, this is an important point. What does your technology do to solve a problem for the customer that you are going to be speaking to? And again, I would go through, summarize what you think are the most important points, and then look at them and say, what are the strongest points about this? And that is a subjective call based on what you know, what you think you might know about the situation. Maybe in a situation where you're adding a new capability that is really a game changer, that's way more significant than the fact that maybe you can do it at a cost level that's, you know, less than something with a lesser technology. Their main focus is going to be the capability, and maybe secondarily the actual cost of the capability, depending on what it is. So now let's flip over and we'll go to our Acme example here. So looking back in quadrant 1, these are general categories of what we'll do. Now in quadrant 3, why would this be important, this technology? Well, it's self-contained and it's self-operating processing of waste. It is a net producer of energy. That means, and probably could flesh out more here, it does not require a lot of its own fuel or power. So if you were to put this in a more forward location, you wouldn't have to worry about a convoy bringing energy to it, because it's going to make its own energy after you get it started working. Similar to a car, it takes energy to start your car, but after your car is started, it actually replaces that energy and makes more. Gets rid of hazardous waste, especially, it could be brought out a lot more. You've got waste materials and food and other things that become a big problem. They also have to be trucked and moved around from forward locations. It's a big deal. The fact that this fits in a standard ISO container, that means there's no special shipping logistics, so it can just put this into the stream of things that they need, wherever it needs to go, and it fits right in. So this is a basic example of the kinds of things you're going to be pointing out in quadrant 3. And now we're going to jump to quadrant 4. Let's look at the questions that are related to that. First of all, TRL. TRL, that's a number that's based on your assessment. When you're applying, there's actually more rigorous definitions, and you should look those up. We have information on that. But in general, TRL is from 1 to 9, technology readiness level. And that indicates very quickly how far you are along. Technology level 1 would be, hey, I have an idea, maybe I scratched it down on a napkin. Technology level, readiness level 9, I'm already producing it commercially. You could just go order it and buy it. The break point is about between 5 and 6. 5 would be, I've demonstrated some critical parts of it, but still it has to be in a lab environment, controlled, can't really handle rain or anything like that, can't really be used in a relatively similar environment to how it would be used. In a 6, it would be more tested in a relative environment to how it would be used, and basic functionality, but not fully packaged, and certainly not a final product. So gives you an idea. Be modest about what your technology readiness level is. It really looks bad if you exaggerate what it is. So I've had people say that they're at a TRL 8 to 9, and they were really only at about a 4. And I've heard Tech Scouts say, wow, they didn't even understand where they're at. That looks bad. So next, we're going to look at scaling. Well, actually, before that, the next line, or a couple of lines underneath the TRL, is just a sentence or two of justification, or bullet points of justification. Why did you pick that TRL? Just say it. I picked a TRL 5 because we've demonstrated some critical parts, or I demonstrated a 3 because I'm at this level and I've done a few calculations. I haven't simulated it yet, but I'm working on that. Just to give an idea, what the Tech Scouts want to see is that you're moving. You're not stagnant. You've got stuff going on. You're in the process of making things happen. So now we're going to move into scaling considerations. Now here's a question. Just think about this in a general sense. What makes sense as far as how somebody would want to scale this? Maybe I've got a little tiny benchtop generator, but I would want to scale this to go up into an ISO container. Maybe I have something that fits in an ISO container, or wouldn't even fit in an ISO container, that they would really want to be portable, man-portable by 1 or 2 people, or smaller. Or how is it going to scale? Is it going to be bigger, smaller, lighter, faster, cheaper? What's it going to do? And if you have it, you can give it at least a rough order of magnitude, the cost projections here of how much you estimate it will probably cost to do that. Then we're going to talk about timeline to market, both with and without financial assistance. This does not mean that they're expecting you to develop this on nights and weekends on your own time for nothing, and you're going to duct tape it together and somehow make it work with no resources. The idea behind this is you already have a plan. What are you doing? If you did not have, without financial assistance, more financial assistance, how are you going to get this to market? What's a reasonable timeline? What would it take? It would take probably maybe 2 years to finish developing this, and you can say here too, a little bit about it, just, briefly. Are you working on a small business innovation research grant or contract that you've submitted or that you're working on? Or we have some early investors that are planning on taking us up to a certain level. You can give just a brief idea of that. And then with financial assistance, a common question that the Tech Scouts would ask would be, how fast can move this thing forward if you had X number of dollars or something like that? Or you say two years. I know an application what really needs it in less than a year. What would it take to do that? Those are the kinds of questions that you want to just pre-answer before, as much as you can, before you even present to them. So these are the kind of things that we're going to look at. And now let's flip to our example back here in our Acme example. So we got a TRL 8 in this example, and we've demonstrated on a small scale. So that's their justification. It actually has a working pilot, but it's not actually scalable necessarily to really, really big systems. Maybe what we would want to do is to be able to gang these together, and actually they think they can gang them together here. So their scaling consideration is that they have a container size self-operating system that, in order to add more capability, they would just put them side by side and link them together. And here's a rough idea of a cost for individual units. So without financial assistance, it's currently in production and available, low quantities, but with $1 million of investment, we could ramp this up very quickly. That gives an idea of what you have here, what you're wanted in this quadrant 4. So if you look at the broad scope of this Acme quad chart, you can see really quickly, just looking at the title and even basic quadrant 1, I have an idea of what this technology does. Quadrant 2, I have a general idea of what they've proven so far. Quadrant 3, here's why I should be interested in. Here's some things, and sometimes they're really obvious, sometimes they're not very obvious. But here's what I think I could do, what they could do for me. And then as we look at quadrant 4, here's where they're at in their technology, how fast they can move forward, what they can do to make it smaller, bigger, faster, lighter, cheaper. So I have a pretty good picture of this company in less than 5 minutes of reading this chart, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I can get a pretty good handle on how this company what it has with its technology and what I could do with it.
Okay, any questions about what you saw so far? Anyone? None? Okay. Speak up if you have some. I'm going to point something out that one of the things we've done on Tuesday, we had someone already asking. So you guys, there we go, may know this and just didn't care to ask. On our template, on quadrant 3, we have DIU area of focus and DIU line of effort that you don't see with Bill covering what you just saw. The reason why we've added that is basically the same reason why that logo's on our backdrop and what we're doing now. We're working closer with DIU, and they're actually helping to fund our program to where we can work with you. They are doing their funding is started out as DIUX, if you didn't know that, and that represented experimentation. The idea was that DIU was an experiment to see could they put some dollars behind a group that all they were focused on was the innovation to commercialization for DoD. That's basically what we do. This morning, a good example. I saw something on LinkedIn, and I shared with it out and commented back to Enduralock. I remember the first year when they pitched. I remember the morning they pitched on the first day, and I remember being concerned about, oh my gosh, we're talking about a fastener, and I'm worried that it's going to put the tech scouts to sleep. Remember that, Bill?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know what I was talking about. Maybe Bill had a clue. I didn't. But as soon as the tech scouts saw it, their response was like, wow. And I thought, what do we do? I don't know what they know, but I know how to attract you. I know how to work with our SBDC folks, and I know how to get you ready. What happens is the DIU folks are sort of like that and a little different, but their job is to help the innovator get to the finish line where DoD as a customer can get your innovation. That's their job. Well, whether they're good at it or not doesn't really matter. They've got money. Congress is putting more money and DoD is putting more money behind them. So they've got tools that they're sharpening, adding for your effort. So what we're trying to do is make that much easier in the handoff, which is what this year is all about. DIU is going to be at our conference. They're going to be speaking on Thursday. You guys are pitching either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday, and we're dovetailing around the conference speaking day of Thursday. So hopefully everyone will be able to be at the Thursday conversation. We did this starting last year, and Keegan Evans is our DIU regional engagement principal out of Kansas City. He shared this information with them. We even added it to our bluff title pitch spreadsheet that we use, that we share with the tech scouts, part of that outreach for other tech scouts. When DIU saw this, they said, wow, they're the only ones that get it. They're doing this right. So what I'm saying here is you've got to make sure you've got this information correct, that you've got it on your quad chart. Regardless of if you get it perfect or not, the most important part is you put an effort to it. We want it right. Bill's going to be better at helping you than I am, and hopefully your tech coach will help you as well. But we need you to do that. And with our questionnaire, hopefully you're already aware of that. As Bill was talking in his presentation, he's referring to the fact that you can get to that stuff. For instance, the technology readiness level. You click on that if you haven't already, and there's all kinds of information here. Some of the stuff he's referring to. We try to give you as much pertinent current information if we can do it without overloading you. There are multiple TRL explanations. That's not the only one. It's just one that we choose right now. Same thing with the combatant command portion, that spreadsheet. But the Defense Innovation Unit area of focus, you can just go to diu.mil and get to DIU. But in there, at some point, you read through this and you'll see where they're talking about their areas we focus on, area of focus. There are all 7 of those across there. You can click on them and it'll take you down the page, or you can literally just scroll down the page and you see each of these. So hopefully all of you are aware of this. We're just trying to make sure you understand. And I mentioned this on Tuesday, some of you may go, I'm not sure if I'm autonomy or if I'm human systems or whatever, because of the split and the way you look at it. Try your best to think how DIU or how the customer would be looking at this. But the idea is that you look at these, read through autonomy and go, well, I'm definitely autonomy. And then look at the splits and pick the one that you think most fits you. That's what we need you to do. And Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to say a few words with that.
Yeah, it can be a little bit confusing the first time you look at it. There's the main category, and then there's the main category here shown as autonomy. The line of effort, there's 7 different line of efforts under this main category, this DIU category. So We want you to try and pick the main category and then the line of effort underneath it. And for most of you, it will probably be fairly obvious. I would say if you kind of fit in two different things, pick one that you think would be more primary than the other. It's not like nobody's going to look at it if you pick a category that's tangential to the one that you should have picked. If it's not the exact category, but it just helps them focus right away on who needs to see this. And if you're having a hard time trying to figure out where it should go, the chances are that whoever's reading it is going to know. They'll look it over and go, oh, this actually would maybe be better over here, but this is interesting. So I would just go with your best guess. And if you're really not sure, contact me, and we'll try and help with it. Because we really want it. The main thing, as Alan pointed out, the main thing is that you try and you get it somewhere in the ballpark. That's a lot more impressive than just leaving it blank.
I think what you may not realize, guys, is you're all busy doing your part. All of the people that are involved in this big array in this ecosystem, we've got 2 time buckets. We got reactive time, what I got to do today, what people call, what people respond to emails. I got that much time. I and almost all of these have very little proactive time left. The more your information is right and correct, the better the chances that the person that is interested in your technology can spend in the proactive portion to be able to move your technology innovation forward or talk to someone. The less they have to do ahead of time, the more they can do later. And that's what this is all about. We learned this very early with Brett Sheringhausen, who's really the one who started this, along with Tim Fowler. And Brett, what we learned from Brett was that they're trying to solve a lot of stuff, not just yours. And so the sooner we can get that clarified, the sooner somebody can refer it to who they need to or pull in the right resources. We've got more of assistance now than ever before. And you guys are on stage with DIU now. You become our calling card for us to prove to DIU that there is a real opportunity with SBDCs across the country, with you as innovators, to where they can put resources towards you. All right, with that, Bill, if you don't have anything, I'm going to pull over and pull.
Well, I would just add one more comment. People that have just come on board with this program sometimes feel like it's a little overwhelming or a little unnecessary. Hey, we're asking for too much. Our application is too long and it's very annoying. Well, it is kind of annoying at some point, but we're trying to help you early on distill down the information about your company and help you laser focus on what's most important. So you maximize just what Alan said. You're maximizing your time with the Tech Scouts and maximizing their usefulness of their time, so they can really focus in, and instead of spending that, the 20-minute slot that you have listening to you, and then spending the last, the 9 minutes of their collaboration time mostly just trying to track with you. Now they've already been tracking with you and they've been thinking about it. Now they can actually make worthwhile suggestions. That's what we're shooting for, and getting on their radar screen enough that, maybe a month or 2 from now, they'll go, hey, that company that I saw back in Encountering Innovation has the solution to this problem. So if you find it's a little bit frustrating or daunting, sorry about that, but don't worry about it. Just keep pressing forward. You'll learn a lot about your company, and you'll learn how to communicate it a lot better and a lot more concisely.
To Bill's point, everything we ask has a reason. Everything that's on here, if you could sit down with just a tech scout that week and spend 4 or 5 hours with them going through from the beginning to that, then this stuff probably wouldn't be that necessary. The problem is if you did that, we'd get 5 or 6 people that could be seen. Brett shared with me the first year about a young lady. He went to her house and he met with her. She was 10 or 11 years old, and her grandfather. And she sat down at the kitchen table, and she said, as a student, she said, we're learning that that copper helps coagulate the human blood. And she said, okay, Papa. And Papa proceeds to cut his left arm and his right arm, puts a regular Band-Aid on his left arm, and her innovative copper laced Band-Aid on on his right arm. His right arm coagulated first, and he said, and Brett tells me, long story short, she's now a millionaire in her 20s. And that was when I first met him in 2016. What we want to do is eliminate him having to drive out to see that one girl for that one innovation. So what we do makes what you do very efficient to where what you have becomes very effective for the Tech Scouts. With that in mind, I'm going to pull Vicki up, and you're on mute.
Thank you.
Were you going to talk about, are you going to mention the what you're working on from the database information to the quad chart and when you're going to deliver it?
Yes. I believe everyone on here should have received an email from me now. One or two. The first one would be with information talking about your OneDrive folder, your client workbook, and your draft bluff statement. And in that same email also refers to your YouTube video short. The bluff statement template and that email, I've given you a deadline to get those to me. Once I have those, then I will go ahead and be creating quad charts, a draft quad chart, and all this information comes from the application that you all submitted. And then in that email that I send out, I'll give you deadlines for each of those. We're doing these documents one at a time versus giving you all of the drafts at once that we've always done in the past. And what we find is that clients go to a document that they think is easier to start working on, i.e. they'll go to their pitch deck and not have looked at any of the others. Well, these build one to the next. And so we're taking one document at a time. So right now you have it, everybody has their bluff statement. Please get that finalized. When you do have a final version of your bluff statement, be sure on the file name, you want to save it to, right now it's BF1. All of the documents will start will have the number 1. That's your very first draft. Any changes that you make, you can rename it to 2 or whatever version is BF2, BF3. On the final one, please make sure that it says final at the end of the file name. That way I know that it's there and it's completed. Once I have that, then I'll go ahead and I'm going to start working on quad charts today. And we'll have those for those that have completed the bluff statements in your OneDrive folder, and I'll send you an email letting you know that it's been placed there. And my goal is to have those done by the end of tomorrow.
Some of you may think that by working on this, gosh, are we ever going to get to the pitch deck? Are we ever going to get ready for? The fact is, the quad chart is the communication document that all the people in DoD actually get trained on. They understand how to read it, how to interpret information, how to be able to glean from it. Your pitch deck is basically nothing but your quad chart blown up. So the sooner you and others have eyes on your quad chart, the better. Brett talked about it from the beginning that you need to be at You need to be writing this at a 6th to 8th grade level. If you're one of those that get caught up and you really feel good about impressing people by them going, I don't have a clue what he or she just said, that does not work with these folks. And the reason why is because they're referring to someone who is going to be like me, that's going to go, wow, that sounds impressive. The reason I'm going to be impressed is because of what you're going to accomplish, your benefit, not your feature. You can say features, your features are saved for the scientist. At some point, you're going to be sharing stuff and a scientist is going to be reviewing this. Bill is our secret weapon because he works on both sides. He's the scientist, but he also is, as a business person and having won multiple SBIRs and worked in this process, he is a small business person like you. So he gets it. So he's the secret weapon helping us. But you want to make this to where the person that's reading this, you got a 6th to 8th grade person in the house, have them review it. Your tech coaches, as we call them, your SBDC folks, are not your experts at what you do. And they're as good as anybody because when they read through it, they're going, I don't get that. That's why you're working through those different bullet points and trying to edit those in a way that it's clear what you're trying to accomplish. You're the innovator. Don't get stuck on the feature side as you've innovated. Get over to the what you were trying to accomplish from the beginning.
Another thing, for those of you that just recently submitted your application, I know you got an email last night about the YouTube shorts. For anyone that has not submitted their YouTube shorts yet, if you can get those in as soon as possible, that would be great. If any of you can get them in by tomorrow, we have a meeting with our EI team, who is the first review of those shorts tomorrow afternoon. So if anyone can get a short to me that hasn't, then I can make sure that it's reviewed by that group tomorrow afternoon. It'll just speed up the process.
As soon as we have this next group of shorts ready, we're going to send them over to the Tech Scouts to review. If you want to know what they're thinking, the sooner you get the short in, the sooner we can get that group together to send to them. We don't want to send them one at a time. We want to send 10 about, is what we really want to do, is get about 10 to them at a time. That way at 3 minutes, 3 times 10, they can sit down in a 30-minute to an hour. They can review and write what they want to, and they can share it among their group, and they all share, and then they get it back to us. And this is something we've not done before. It's a game changer because we're getting you're basically doing your first pitch through this 3-minute short. Don't freak out. It's a collaborative process. They're collaborating with you, with us. So it's for them to understand enough to where they get the relevance, where they can feed back to us. Then from that, we work with you and train you going forward. The sooner you get that to us, the sooner we get that to them. Have all of you read what we talked about? Have any of you not read the YouTube short, the process that we talk about? Everybody's read it? Everybody knows what we're talking about? Some of you guys aren't on the screen, so I don't know if you're nodding your head or not. The idea, we had one guy that did it, that really did a good job of telling us that we liked his approach to this. He basically gave himself 30 minutes time to record this 3 times. He recorded it by himself the first time, then looked at it, and from that made notes of what he left out, what he should have said, did it a second time and a third time. In 30 minutes, he had his YouTube short. That's what we're talking about. Do we have some that have done a remarkable job and it's picture perfect? Yes, we have. Guess what? That's fine, but that's not what these Tech Scouts are looking for. They're looking for understanding enough to where they can give us feedback for you to be in the program and to pitch. Do we want that YouTube short that's perfect? Yes, we do, but we don't need it right now. We're going to use that later to open other doors, and we'll talk about that when that time's needed, okay? Just we need you to finish now. That's what we're talking about. Is that everything, Vicki? Okay, Bill, do you have anything?
No, I think I'm good.
Rick?
I'm here. The only thing I was just going to mention, although I think you you sort of mentioned it anyway, is with the matchmaking, the whole idea is feel free to go through the companies and their information that you're sent. Go through, and if there's somebody that you just think maybe would be a good person to communicate with, sign up for the matchmaking. Even if it's something that you don't do, but you think, hey, you know, maybe they have something that I need to, you know, somehow they might be interesting to talk to, go ahead and set up for the matchmaking. Because in the last 3 years when we did the matchmaking this way, they would come back to us and say, hey, I'm glad I picked those couple other folks, because even though there wasn't a direct link, I got some interesting information that's going to help me in the future. So feel free to sign up for the matchmaking, just if it seems like somebody interesting to talk to. That's it for me.
Thanks, Rick. To what Rick's saying, I will tell you our highest response is with the matchmaking. It's the most responded positive coming out of Encountering Innovation first, because you really up until this year, now we're changing the way we're doing things with the Tech Scouts. So we're all going to learn with the way the Tech Scouts are doing what they're doing with us this year, because we pivoted some. But it is the first most positive response, because you're going to be working with others. We're going to cover more of what he's talking about as you go forward. But yes, the matchmaking is a big, big deal. He's working with Marshall Space Center right now. We're working with DIU, Keegan Evans, and Tim Fowler, Tech Scout. So we're working to try to improve matchmaking events, whether it's literally at this event or later on. We're still working on those, because it's a big part of David Shahady, who was the Air Force SBIR director, was the one who told us, he said, the tech transfer happens at the tier 2, tier 3 companies, not the prime contractor. He said, they're busy working on contracts. He said, it's those tier 2 and tier 3 that are working with the primes. And so that's what Rick's working on with others, is to amass as many as we can of those kind of companies that are looking for technology to bring on. So we've discovered that you, as a small business with other small businesses, you guys connect in a way that, as an SBDC, it's not easy for SBDCs to do that necessarily, because they're held confidential to begin with. By their very nature, they keep your information quiet and not out to everyone else. As we go forward, I haven't said it today, and I should have, Bill, is we try to do a good job of talking about, as we're going to the conference, you're going to be working on 2 types of documents. It's either private or it's public facing. A quad chart is private. Your capability matrix that Rick works on comes from the questions that we ask. That's public facing information. We try to do a very good job of telling you what's private and what's public, because our motto is, we may not help you, but we will not hurt you. We try to do our best to give you information to where, as you provide it forward to us, that it's shared. What's in the pitch room is private. The working with someone in a matchmaking session is private. You with some other innovator, some other advanced manufacturer, that's private. The information on the capability matrix is public. Your bluff that Vicky's asking for is public. We're doing everything we can to market to where others will come to see you, to where they can have a private meeting with you, and then the other information is out there that's public. All right, I think that's it for this week. Any questions before we sign off? Okay, Vicky, I think we're done.
Okay.
Do you need it to hold anybody after class?
No.
Okay.